Hello everyone and welcome to another bass singer reaction and analysis. Although today really more of a vocal analysis and talking about the arrangement some. I had the honor of being involved with this project with the Wellermen. This is the Wellermen cover of Misty Mountains, featuring basically every kind of up-and-coming bass singer in this younger generation, some of whom are already very well established. You have someone like Jonathan Young, who already has, 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Colm McGinnis is in this, Bobby, of course, all the Wellermen, the whole bass gang got to be featured. So this just came out today, a couple hours ago, but of course I'm intimately familiar with it because I was part of the process in being there and, tracking vocals for it and recording my video portion of the music video. So I'm going to break down some things that are happening here vocally, so a lot of commenting on the singers and stuff like that, but it's not as much of a reaction video. So if you're looking for that, I'm sure plenty of them are going to be made in the next few days. So how this project got started was, this is actually Bobby's arrangement, Bobby Bass or Bobby Waters. He arranged this piece for the Wellermen to do as a part of their full album they're putting together, and he wanted to feature, a ton of bass singers that he's collaborated with and wanted to collaborate with. And he was generous enough to invite the whole bass gang to come sing on it. So we were very excited when we got that message. But just to put a point on that, this is Bobby's arrangement. It's a beautiful job, I think largely inspired by the Peter Hollins version, which you'll be able to hear similarities in here. But Bobby added a lot of his own really cool elements, especially a lot of really interesting harmonies in here that are not in that version. So he very much made his own arrangement, but was, I believe, inspired by that version of it. It's a more kind of haunting sound than the Jeff version, for instance. And you'll hear that if you haven't heard it already. So let's go ahead and get this started. Guys, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Go check out the Wellermen. Go check out all these amazing basses that are featured in this original video. It's really amazing. I think it's 20 of us. It's really an all-star ensemble. It was such an honor to be a part of. And yeah, guys, if you're getting a lot out of this, please go subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1. Get a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Actually, in the process of making May the Bass Be With You Volume 2 with the Bass Gang coming out in May. So if you want to see behind-the-scenes stuff for that amazing project, we'll have some huge collaborators on that. You can see that through my Patreon. But guys, let's go ahead and get this started. Let's break this down. Let's see what's happening musically and with the arrangement, and let's have some fun. This is the bass anthem. So a bunch of bass singers coming together for really kind of the bass anthem of this generation. Let's do it. Right before Bobby takes the solo. So it's actually I was not expecting at all to be featured right at the start here, but we have 3 of the bass gang members, everyone except Bobby, me, Tommy, and Marwan, featured in this very first clip. Something funny about this, when you're putting together a big video like this, there's only, it's so many moving parts, and there's only so much you can do as far as organization and kind of individual collaboration with the video editor, the audio editor. So you kind of just have to trust the people, trust the powers that be, putting it together. I don't think I was even actually miming singing in this first clip. I think this clip was actually from me before I started doing the lip sync for the video. So I think I'm actually just standing there staring at the camera, which I thought was really funny. But again, it's a detail that it's not worth kind of upsetting the whole sequence and release project to reach out to the video editor and be like, hey, I'm not actually singing that one. Because you could I guess argue looking at it, it's an anyway. We're all singing here, and I'm just standing there with my mouth closed. So it kind of works anyway. It's pretty emotionless, which is kind of funny. It's just a funny little thing. This arrangement starts off pretty much how all arrangements for Misty Mountain start off. It's this kind of intro. We're getting this like deep male chamber choir sound. Everyone is singing on an which blends quite nicely. All the closed vowels blend easier due to how the harmonics are structured. So it's a really nice sound. It sounds like we're singing in the caves, we're singing down in Moria, we're singing in the Lonely Mountain, whatever. It's kind of the perfect start to that. Also, I figured I'd sport the jacket that I was wearing in this video, for this video. So you can see there I'm wearing this leather jacket. But overall, a very typical start for this, and it's kind of a start you can't go wrong with, and it's not where you want to add your own heap of creativity in this piece. I think it is the best way to start this song, and I think Bobby started it in a smart way. It gives us a place to build. It sets up contrast, my favorite buzzword for a cappella arrangements. So that's what's happening here. I don't remember who sang every part by name, by breakdown. A lot of us were singing the low stuff for much of it, and then Tommy and I sang, and I think a couple others, maybe a couple of guys from the Wellermen sang the really high stuff up to a high A flat, which I'll point out in the middle. But for now, let's keep this rolling, and we'll get into the main portion of the song when Bobby comes in with the solo.
Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away at break of day to find our
Super cool. So in that first verse, we have Bobby coming in, low part starts A flat, down, in the normal key. Then Luke comes in. So Bobby's got this very warm, breathy bass, a lot like Avi Kaplan. Not a ton of power. I mean, he does have a surprising amount of power when he gets into his low range, but as far as just his kind of natural voice, it's a more breathy, warm, smooth tone, a lot like Avi Kaplan. And then we have this great contrast because Bobby and Luke have very similar vocal ranges as far as how low they can go, but Luke has a much more robust sound with more higher harmonics in the sound, higher partials in the frequency. And it presents this beautiful contrast. They're pretty much singing the same notes, but they have totally different timbres. So let's check that out. Let's just compare and contrast Bobby's really warm, breathy sound to Luke's kind of more jazzed up, a little more robust kind of style of singing.
Far over,
far over, far over. And of course, also another thing is Bobby could add much more power to these first few notes if he wanted to, but it makes sense to start the song out much more pulled back so we have a place to go. So that's also a smart move on his part, artistically.
The misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep.
Dungeons deep, dungeons deep. And Luke has this cavernous kind of dark bass voice naturally. It's really amazing. I selfishly wish he would train as an opera singer because I think he would actually make a killer operatic bass if he trained that way. Just a very you can tell there's a lot of power hidden in that voice. But I love this contrast between these two basses.
To dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away.
We have Johnny. Also a bass, another version of a bass voice, a little bit higher than the other two.
To find our love,
and then the whole crew comes in. So you don't see us, but you can hear the whole choir come in on that chord there. Very powerful. And then we get into the second verse here.
The pines were roaring on the height, the winds were moaning in the
So I believe we have Andre singing the first. I haven't worked with him yet. I know he blew up kind of during the sea shanty craze as well. Very low bass. We have Andre and then Colm. So Andre's got a... Let's go back and check out the differences between their voices. Actually, it's hard to tell timbre there on Andre because there's actually more of a choral, kind of a chamber choir sense there. But Colm has a very distinctive sound. It's very easy to pick Colm out in his low notes. So Colm, he darkens his voice like crazy when he goes into his low range. And I think it's just a choice he made kind of from the get-go. I remember seeing one of his first sea shanties he made. Again, Colm blew up during the sea shanty craze. And I remember being sure that it was fake, that it was modulated down because of how dark it is, especially compared to the rest of his voice. But it's not, because now he's taken us behind the scenes and shown us he can actually make his voice that dark naturally. Now, it's not a kind of singing that you would want to do day in, day out, because pulling the tongue back to block pharyngeal space to darken the sound does put a lot of unnecessary tension on your entire vocal apparatus, especially on how the hyoid bone is connected to the tissue surrounding. And that can develop into vocal issues down the road. But it's, of course, not something he uses all the time. It's just when he's tracking these in his like super low register, because you can tell as he goes up in his range, the tongue frees, the voice frees, and he's able to access crazy high notes in his chest range with a ton of power. And that wouldn't be possible if he was anchoring his tongue like he does for his low notes. But it gives him this super distinctive sound where it's like, it sounds like his voice is modulated, but it's really not. It's really a sound he's producing naturally, which is pretty crazy. And it gives, and you can pick him out in a million voices because the sound is so distinctive. So let's keep going here. He comes back in later too. So just be listen. I mean, you know what he sounds like because you've heard him do stuff, but just be mindful when he pops in. You're like, oh, that's Colm, and he's intentionally darkening his voice in his bass register.
The fire was red, its flaming spread.
Jonathan Young looking like rockstar Jesus right here. I love the white linen button down, the long flowing hair. It's just so perfect. And then of course we have Yves and F.A. and Marwan here as well. Closing out this awesome trio. It's really cool to bring Jonathan in, and he took a very distinctive style singing this. He goes, it's not in the bass part of his range, which he has, it's in middle voice, and he actually chose to add some vibrato in the sound.
The fire was red, its flaming
spread. Now he has a more forward, it's interesting, he's got a little bit of darkening happening, but the sound is forward enough so it doesn't lose its brightness. You can hear the sound kind of has an edge to it. Red. It's got a brightness, kind of a snarl to it, which keeps the voice forward. I think that's something he uses in his heavy rock style singing because that's a sound that cuts, it bites, it adds edginess and intensity to a vocal phrase. So it's cool, and he's just tapping into a little bit for this section, because again, we're only in verse 2. We've got a long way to go. It wouldn't make sense if Jonathan Young went full Jonathan Young in this section and just like ripped face in his rock mode. It wouldn't be fitting. So he's following the structure of the piece, which is great.
like torches.
Now that's a duo.
Blaze with light.
You listen closely there, you can hear a low A flat there happening, which of course is how we end the song, but there was another one here thrown in the middle. And there were a bunch of guys in this group who sang the low A flats in chest. I was not one of them.
Blaze with light. The wind was on.
it's very, so you can hear the tongue pull back. It's a very dark sound, and it gives Colm this very distinctive color within the context, even of a bunch of other bass singers. It's still clearly the darkest voice there. JoJo has my favorite voice in this whole crew. I mean, that is just absolutely butter smooth, and he has crazy low chest range. Maybe the lowest out of this entire group, as far as I know. Dude has major low chest, and it's just he's a very skilled singer and has such smooth delivery and control in his voice.
But in the forest stirred no leaf. Their shadows lay, be night or day, and dark things silent crept beneath.
There's the high flat. There it is. What's that's the pattern we sang to get up there. So listen closely. It's both Tommy and I think maybe Sam Pope from the Wellermen are singing this super, super high passage you wouldn't expect to hear in a bass anthem. Listen, it's in the background, so you have to listen carefully.
And dark things silent crept beneath.
High. Okay, so that's like kind of climax number 1 of the song. Full choir sound. We've got big beefy bass vocals. But we've also got Tommy and I and maybe 1 or 2 others singing the really high stuff. So we're covering a big spectrum here. Really cool section, and really, really, really I love this arrangement. I really like Peter Hollins and Tim's version too, but I actually, and maybe I'm biased because I'm a part of it, but I think I like Bobby's arrangement even more. I think there's a little more nuance and creativity in terms of the chords he uses. There's a lot of interesting accidentals and harmonics thrown in to add more crunch into the sound. Like an Eric Whitacre kind of style where you'd have your chord, then you add a few other notes within that context to add some crunch, add some dissonance. Bobby did a really great job of that, used kind of just enough to where it's not distracting, but it does add the kind of eerie edginess to the sound that you might think, that I think is kind of perfect for this song, specifically in the theme, just the kind of feel of this piece and its nature. So big shouts to Bobby, and here we get David Larson, the kind of OG subharmonic king on the right, and David Kahn, another kind of OG subharmonic and vocalist extraordinaire. So we get David squared here. David Kahn on the left on the low octave, David Larson on the right in the high octave. And David Larson's really more of a baritone kind of tenor voice, but because he's mastered subharmonics, he can sing comfortably deep within the bass range. And David Kahn is more of a natural bass with just a freakish vocal range. So this is David squared here.
The wings went on from west to east.
This is actually the same verse that the bass gang short of Bobby are also singing the leads. It's hard to hear because there's a bunch of us singing the leads at once. I think me, Marwan, Tommy, and Ife maybe are on the bottom. And David Larson, and maybe one. It's like 6 or 7 of us all singing the lead, so it's hard to hear. But this was the verse that Bobby gave to the bass gang and a few others.
From west to east, our movement is
There's a couple of us, Tommy and Marwan.
the forest east, but shrill and harsh across the marsh, its whistling voices
So again, some really interesting stuff happening in the background voices there. And again, you could hear Colm's timbre clearly, even though he's not pushed above the other leads. It's kind of the same volume, but the timbre is just so clear when he sings with that certain style of darkened bass vocals. So that's that verse. We had Tommy and Marwan there who were actually singing the part. I was singing that part, but wasn't featured in the video in that section. Again, there's way too many things to put together when you're putting a video like this. So it's everything you see on screen is not everything that's happening. Normally there are a lot more voices singing than are featured at any given time during this video, which is the nature of how these kinds of projects have to come together by necessity and nature of simply how much room there is on the screen. You could put a million bubbles on here and have everyone singing all their voice parts, but it would just look like a big virtual choir. And this is a more interesting way of kind of featuring bits and pieces and certain singers who are on certain parts at times. And it's just a much more interesting way to throw together a video rather than doing the kind of, just a bunch of squares with everyone singing. So it makes sense. And even though some parts are missed, it's still overall a really good job. And super happy about it. And it looked like everyone else was pumped about it too, especially during the premiere. That was exciting. And let's go into everyone's favorite verse of this song, the final verse, where it is just bass overload. I'm going to just go ahead and throw these on because it is time to go to bass country.
Farewell we call to hearth and hall. The wind may blow and rain may fall. We must away ere break of day, far o'er the wood and mountain tall.
Mountain tall. So, Tommy and I think we're the only two not in this final bit. There might be more. Also, just an absolutely killer ending. Tons of low A flats and chest. Tommy and I don't know about Tommy. I did sing the whole low bass line for this last segment, including the low A flat. I actually used subharmonics. I was just singing a minute ago in chest fry, which is my normal go-to. So we're not in the video here, but Tommy and I both did sing the ending of this song. Just wanted to point that out. And again, it's kind of just like how much space there is on the screen, who's been on screen more than others. So that's just how it worked out. Of course, I would have liked to be featured in the ending because it's the coolest part of the song, but be that as it may, still very happy to see how this video turned out. And just a super cool thing to be a part of. And also, it's so cool because there's all these bass singers and all these very distinctive voices, which that was kind of my main point of doing this video, is to highlight all the different timbres, the different styles, the different colors, the different techniques that everyone uses when singing. You take, like I said, that the first part, the difference between Bobby and Luke. Bobby's got this warm, kind of breathy, Avi-like sound. Luke's got this much more robust kind of power singing in his low range. And then you have someone like Jonathan Young, who has backgrounds as a hardcore rock vocalist, can do tons of grit, tons of power, can use vibrato, and then you compare that to a voice like JoJo, who is just buttery smooth, absolutely buttery smooth, great at riffing, great vocal control, super low chest range, no grit whatsoever, but both bass voices. And then you bounce over to someone like Colm, who is naturally can sing in the bass register. I don't know what he calls himself. If he calls himself a bass with a high extension or a baritone with a low extension. He's got a huge chest range and can kind of pick what he wants. I think he's a bass with, or at least, I would say a bass with really good high range. And he intentionally uses this extremely darkened color in his low range. And people often comment about Colm, they're like, oh my gosh, it sounds like completely different voices in your low register and your upper registers. That's because he is singing very differently in those different registers. He's really kind of over bassing the bass part and brightening up the top part, so there's kind of as much distinction as possible. So when you do hear him singing in kind of one of his a cappella or like covers, it does sound like different singers because he's intentionally singing those voice parts in a very different way. As opposed to, if I approach an operatic aria, the whole goal really of an opera singer is to maintain perfect consistency, unless you choose to change colors and timbres and such like that for artistic reasons, but to be able to have a perfect column of sound from the top of your range to the bottom, where it basically sounds like everything is the exact same. That's like the ultimate goal of an opera singer, because then that's when you know you've reached basically full control over your instrument in that way. So it's like different strokes for different folks, different styles of singing for different genres, and it's so cool to hear all these very different bass voices come together in one song, and we can see just how different, even within one voice type, the kinds of voices can be. So super cool, super fun to be a part of. I'm honored to share the track and share the video stage with these legends, these stars. Some are already stars, some will be stars. So a huge honor to be a part of, and I hope you guys enjoy this analysis, this breakdown. Of course, I could take hours to break down more and more about the arrangement and more specifically about voice types, but I think this is a pretty good highlight reel kind of the difference between all these singers, at least the ones who are clearly featured here in this video that I could point out. So please like this video, please subscribe, please go check out the original, check out the Wellermen, check out all these amazing artists and singers, and if you're really enjoying this, guys, please consider donating to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And yeah, that's all it takes. And guys, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. And may the bass be with you.